level way up till it's high voltage. We gon' light them up, make the world take notice. When the game face on, then it's game over. You a witness in the force to be flagship. Grinding for greatness. Proving it.
Welcome back, everybody. It's been a little bit. I have a very special guest tonight, Mike Virginia, a fantasy baseball guru here. Mike, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Super excited to be on and chat some baseball.
Definitely. So we're going to kick it right off the bat, man. Who is your best sleeper in the AL East this year?
For just fantasy baseball?
Yeah. Like, who's that one guy that you think that could put somebody over the top?
Oh man, put me on the spot here. I think Christian Campbell of Boston has a lot of potential. Obviously, a top 10 prospect in all of baseball. Had a slow start to spring, but looks to be the real deal. I think he could be their next Dustin Pedroia. Went super late in drafts. I think a lot of people know who he is, but weren't necessarily buying the rookie hype. It's still early, but this kid, it looks to be the real deal, especially in the minors and even in college. So I like Christian Campbell a lot of Boston. And another guy I like that I had in some drafts was Andres Jimenez of Toronto, which kind of scares me as an O's fan because he looks great to start the season. And everyone was kind of weirded out by like, why is this guy batting fourth, a middle infielder, kind of a small dude, but he's been playing well.
Yeah, I mean, he's always had a pretty solid career, and I mean, it's just the O's seem to find one guy every year that just kind of kills them, and it's I mean, through the first 4 games, it seems like he's going to be that guy this year.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money. Remember that one year with Gleyber Torres when we had when we had the left field fence in, he had like 13 home runs against us. It was awful.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts on Bo Bichette this year. Does he bounce back into a good fantasy player? Or is he kind of maybe tailing off?
Yeah, I mean it was a very unpopular take. Apparently, I know some people in the industry were also out on him, like I was, and I was personally. I know a lot of people liked him, and if you look at his numbers, going back to the season that they had in Dunedin, was really his only really quote unquote good season. And not to say that he's not a good in real life player, because he definitely is, but his hard hit rate has gone down. He's not stealing bases anymore. I think people are kind of in the boat that they think that, Bo Bichette will have that Dunedin season where he's going to hit 25, 30 home runs, which he very well still could. Off to a decent start to start the year. I don't have any shares of him in any of my leagues, but at the same time too, I understand why people were kind of in on him, because he has had some injury riddled seasons, but that's the reason why I was out on him, is because that right leg has taken such a beating between his hamstring, his knees, the calf, the ankles. It's batting in a much better lineup with Toronto. It looks like I think he's a guy who can give you somewhat of a decent season, but like I said, I think the Dunedin season is probably the outlier here. Again, we'll see. It's still early on, but he looks good. He looked great in spring training. If he can pull the ball, which is something that got brought up a lot throughout the season, if he can start pulling the ball more, I like him to bounce back. But again, he's got to be able to get around and get through the baseball. So,
yeah. Give me your thoughts on Jeff Hoffman. Is that a guy that people should be looking for in the back end of the rotation, or is it proceed with caution kind of deal?
Well, Jeff Hoffman, the closer for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
I like him. It speaks more volumes of how they really thought about Jordan Romano, which, by the way, I found out yesterday during the broadcast. It's pronounced Romano and not Romano, which is so irritating to me. I don't know why. I like Jeff Hoffman coming over from the Phillies. The AL East is going to be brutal for every team. I don't care what team you are or where you finish at. I think it's the most competitive division in baseball. With everybody in there who improved in the offseason. I like him as a guy, maybe outside the top 10, maybe like anywhere between 11 and 12 in terms of closers go. but we'll see. I like him a lot as a deep sleeper in terms of closer that maybe you can wait on. I only have one share of him out of my 6 leagues, but hopefully the Blue Jays will be in position to give him some save opportunities.
We'll stick with them, and give me your thoughts on Santander. Is he going to be a viable fantasy threat this year, or is those indoor numbers going to come back and haunt him?
I mean, he's always been a power guy, right? Like, I was bummed when the O's didn't sign him back, obviously, because he's a homegrown guy. You know, I wanted to re-sign him, but I also didn't want to pay him that money either. So we were actually talking about it Sunday over at my folks' house. You kind of got Anthony Santander with Tyler O'Neill and cheaper.
Yeah.
Paid O'Neill a lot of money, but not nearly as much as Santander got with Toronto. But I still like him as a power bat. Like, I still like him as a 230, 240 hitter, anywhere 30 and 35 home runs. Especially in that lineup too. He should have some protection both in the front and behind him. So I like him kind of to produce, maybe not as good as he did in Baltimore last year, but still a decent power threat, especially in an outfield position that gets scarce really quick in fantasy if you play in 5 outfielder leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's transition back to Boston a little bit. I'm a big Walker Buehler guy, but like, I'm really scared that he doesn't finish the season.
Yeah, I am also a big Walker Buehler guy. I was in on him last year when he was with LA. Kind of like the Bo Bichette of pitchers, if you will. But we saw really breakout potential with Walker Buehler in Los Angeles as their frontline ace. This is before they signed Yamamoto and Sasaki and Glass now. It was Walker Buehler at the top of that rotation, and then injuries just kind of bit him in the butt, and then he was never the same guy. So fresh start over in Boston. Again, anybody pitching in the AL East is going to be tough to own in fantasy simply because of how great the lineups are from top to bottom in that division. So I don't know if we see the Walker Buehler of old, but I definitely see as the ceiling being an SP3, SP2 spot in fantasy. Again, the K's are going to be hard to come by, but we'll see. I like Walker Buehler from a talent perspective for sure. He's still young too, so.
I got a question for you already, apparently. Bench one, start one. Mountcastle versus Vinny. I would pick Vinny myself, but.
Yeah, I like Vinny Pasquantino as well. He is sitting today. He's not in the lineup due to the hamstring injury. I love Mountie, man. Mountie was one of my guys that I was going after in all of my drafts, and I don't have any shares. And I think people sniped me on that for a reason because they knew I was on him. But I was also very in on Vinny Pasquantino. Vinny Pasquantino is my number one rostered guy. He's the number one my guy, if you will, in all drafts. I think he can deliver 25, 30 homer pop, give you a really respectable batting average at first base between 270 and 280. That's if he stays healthy. And an improved lineup with Kansas City with the addition of Jonathan India, Bobby Witt Jr. hitting in front of him. And that division is not anything to be scared of either with Chicago and Minnesota. So I like Vinny Pasquantino a lot, so I'll go him there.
I'm going to give you a real tough one here. If you had to pick one to have the best overall fantasy season between, I'm going to give you 4 of them. They're all Orioles, obviously. Jackson Holiday, Westberg, Henderson, or Adley. Who do you think would give you the best overall fantasy season?
Definitely Gunnar Henderson. He was going in the first round prior to his intercostal injury. Going in the top 5 or 6 picks. And then obviously we found out that he'd missed the start of the season. He had another home run today, by the way. But this guy's a fantasy superstar. This is a superstar in general. So I got him at pick 11 in a 12-man team draft. And he was going at pick 5 or 6. And I'm only missing the first 7 games of the season with him. I happily take that discount. But I will note that Jordan Westberg was a very popular pick amongst many people in the industry. If you guys remember last year when we were talking about all of the Orioles' top prospects, everyone was really excited about Kobe Mayo and Jackson Holiday and a lot of these other young guys, Heston Kjerstad. It was Jordan Westberg that vaulted to the front of that line. And again, if he stays healthy without fracturing that hand, we're talking about a guy we're probably drafting in the first 3-4 rounds. So I like Westberg a lot. I think he's number 2 on that list. Jackson Holiday, I have a very unpopular opinion on, and I hope to God I'm wrong. I think he's a better in real life player than he is fantasy. He just doesn't really do anything elite at this point in his career and how young he is. Not saying that he can't be, but for this season, I don't really have a whole lot of high hopes for him to produce from a fantasy perspective.
That makes sense. Is that because he doesn't run enough, or is it just the on base?
Kind of a little bit of everything, right? Like in fantasy, you want guys that are going to be hitting towards the top, 2/3 of the lineup. He's hitting 8th, right?
Right.
And again, unless he's going to be producing solid batting average numbers, he's going to have 13, 14 home runs, 15 maybe, with maybe a handful of stolen bases, kind of in that same realm, which is fine. I think where he's drafted at is appropriate. But again, from a fantasy superstardom production value, where he was drafted at in real life in the draft at number 1, I'm not saying he can't get to that, but this kid's still relatively young and needs to grow into it a little bit. He's got some adjustments he needs to make. We saw with the high leg kick that he had in the very beginning of last year. Kind of working through that and getting a little bit more of his front foot down to get earlier and catch up to fastballs. So, like I said, I think there's those things. I'm not willing to buy a guy that's trying to figure it out. I want somebody who's going to be able to produce right away. So,
yeah, that's fair. Another good question for you here. Is it too risky to stack too many of the players on the same team? Is 3 from the same team too many?
No, that's a great question here. And I get this quite often when people are choosing between players off the waiver wire and also just on their team in drafts, really. I always ask this question. If you were able to draft Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and Freddie Freeman, bearing he's healthy, would you be okay with that? And most people's answer is hell yeah, because all those guys go in the first 2 rounds, right?
Right.
So for me, it's not fantasy football, right? It's not this where they have to share the football, where they have to go around and draft 3 receivers from the same team. That would make sense. And baseball, it's the same thing with the Braves, right? Like the Braves are loaded. I would love to have Austin Riley, Matt Olson, and Ozzie Albies in a perfect world, but that'll never happen unless you're playing in a cupcake league. So, no, I don't think this doesn't matter to me whatsoever. In fact, you target people like that on the Braves and the Dodgers. You want all of those guys because they can hit, right? So, at least, and even if I said, like, even if one of those 3 guys goes 0 for 3, but the other go 3 for 4, 2 for 4 with a home run and a couple RBIs and stolen bases, I'm happy. And just keep going around that carousel and hoping that they all hit, or 1 or 2 or 3 all hit. So, you draft your studs no matter what. It doesn't matter if they're all on the same team or not.
Yeah. Let's stick with the O's here. What are your thoughts on Sagano this year? Is he going to produce real life and in fantasy?
Real life wise, I mean, here's the thing. It was a low risk signee for us, 35-year-old from across the pond there. He's a fly ball pitcher, so I don't like him so much with the AL East with boppers like Devers and Judge and even Brandon Lau and some of the guys in Tampa, Junior Caminero, and especially all the guys in Toronto as well, Vladdy and Santander. So I think he's a solid low risk move for us, in terms of like the back end of a rotation kind of guy. And fantasy, I'm not touching him with a 40-foot pole just simply because of the home run factor being too high. So, which can really blow up your ratios. If you're playing deeper leagues, deeper mixed leagues, I think that's a fine spot to add him, especially if you play in like a 14 or deeper league. But the O's rotation is a head scratcher for me. That was the glaring hole that we needed to address. And I know we pursued Corbin and he wanted to stay in Arizona and be closer to his family, but he can't feel confident going into this season and nothing against Zach Eflin, great pitcher, but he's not a frontline starter, especially competing in an AL East where everybody I felt like went out and got somebody or improved. We kind of sat back and did nothing. But I'll flip this back on you here too. Like, what's your take on how the O's should approach some of their prospects and trading some of those prospects for, a frontline starter or even just a 2-3 guy?
I'm bullish on Jose Soriano, and I would trade Kobe Mayo for him in a heartbeat.
Okay.
I don't know if the Angels would, because they're pretty bullish on Soriano too. But if it's for the right guy with 4 or 5 years control, I would probably let go of Mayo. Just because, I mean, he's kind of blocked, and you're gonna obviously get more for him than you would for Mountcastle. Kerstad, I don't think Kerstad's got a ton of value, in my personal opinion, especially if they end up sending him down with gunners ready. how can you sell a guy who's turning 27 years old? It's like Kyle Stowers all over again. Like you just,
Yeah.
at this point, you're going to beg somebody to take him in a trade, even though the talent is probably there. So they're in a sticky situation with that. Especially because you got Bradfield coming up, you've got Beavers kind of waiting. Judd Fabian, you could probably trade, but if he played here, you probably get a serviceable fourth outfielder out of him.
Yeah.
They
Vance
got
Honeycutt
a
is another
lot.
guy they drafted out of North Carolina,
Right,
who I'm
right.
really high on. I love
Aust-
Beavers too.
Austin O'Verne, a lot of people are
Yep.
sleeping on him.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of talent all up and down. I mean, Frederick Ben Sakome, if I say that wrong, I apologize. I mean, he's another pretty decent infielder that probably is going to fetch a good bullpen arm for us. He's never
Yep.
going to play here though. He's like Connor Norby. He's just stuck. He's a good player, but they just have too much.
Yeah.
I don't see Mayo being a guy that's defensively better than Ryan Mountcastle. Offensively, maybe power wise, obviously, because Ryan's numbers power wise have dropped over the years, but his runners in scoring position has gotten better. Hitting the ball to right field has gotten tremendously better. It would be like a give or take thing. Like, is the offense that much better where I can sacrifice the defense? But defense wins championships. It doesn't matter the sport. So I don't know.
And they also have Samuel Basallo as well, who they have to find a way to get him in the lineup, and he's kind of stuck and blocked as well, unless they plan on moving him or Adley to first base and the other one DHs, or maybe they flip flop him. But he's the next Raffy Devers. The dude is for real, and somebody I'm really high on in dynasty leagues for fantasy baseball. But as an O's fan, he's my only untouchable right now, along with the guys that are currently up on the major league roster like Gunnar and Jackson Holiday and Jordan Westberg. But I know they've been talking a lot about trying to find a trade partner for Mountcastle, but I don't know what you're going to fetch for him unless he goes to yeah, exactly. So in order to get a frontline ace, like I know that we've been linked to like Dylan Cease. And again, here's the thing with that is the Padres are going to want somebody good, and we're not going to part with one of our top prospects for a rental that has the potential to not sign with us in the off season. So I know a lot of people this is the kind of thing that kind of chapped my butt last year with Baltimore is everybody wanted us to go out and get somebody. And Jeff Passan of ESPN said it best. Who do you want them to go out and get? Because there was nobody available on the market. All of the top starting pitchers, those teams were in the playoff hunt, right? So there was nobody sitting on a team where you looked at and said, hey, like I want this guy for the O's without it being a rental and without us giving up a top prospect. But I agree with you on Mayo, especially if the plans are to keep Basallo. I know that Elias had said Mayo is untouchable, but he has not looked good. He had a great season in Norfolk last year. With Kierstad, that he has to produce now and showcase his stuff so that the O's can get some value from him. But if you're playing every other day and only hitting against righties and sitting against lefties, that doesn't do anything to improve your draft stock.
Yeah, it's almost literally like Kyle Stowers all over again. I made 100%. A video beginning of last year, and I'm like, what do the O's even do with him? Because he's a good player. Is he a starter? No. He's probably a better fourth outfielder than most teams' leagues. He just needed a chance to play every day, and he wasn't going to get that here. Not with Santander.
No.
He's doing okay in Miami. I wouldn't say he's blowing the barn doors off or anything like that, but he's getting an opportunity. He's producing right now in 25. He didn't last year, but I just don't want Heston to fall in that same role because I feel like Heston's probably a better player than Kyle. Kyle maybe slightly defensive edge. I think Heston's probably got a better arm though. Definitely the better bat. Better plate discipline. All that good stuff. All around better player in my opinion. I just don't want that same thing to happen. And it's probably going to happen to Beavers too, and some of the other guys. I mean, eventually, you can't play everybody, right? I mean, if Cowser pans out and Kierstad pans out, like, and Bradfield pans out, then you got a problem with Beavers and Honeycutt and O'Verne. If they make it, and or some other guys that they draft over the next 2 seasons. Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to start dealing some of these guys now. I was a very big proponent and backer of Mike Elias's. I'm not just, and this is the thing, I really didn't understand the Norby trade. I get it, he wasn't going to play here, but to fetch a guy like Trevor Rogers, who's terrible, I was a big Connor Norby guy. I loved him when we drafted him out of ECU. I hoped we would have kept him as an outfielder or found a spot for him, because I do believe the kid can hit. He's hit at every major league level since he's been drafted. But same thing like Joey Ortiz. Both those guys were not going to find infield spots with us because they're both shortstop, second basemen, and third basemen. Like they could play all three of those positions, but you're not playing short or second with Gunnar and Jackson, and then you're also not playing third because of Westberg. So they had to be
100%.
dealt. But I just didn't want to come back with, and Kyle Stowers needed to be dealt as well, because again, like you had mentioned, it's just not enough spots in the outfield. But to get a guy like Trevor Rogers as the return, to everyone on, at least on my side of the house, was thinking like, what the are we doing, man? Like, Trevor Rogers, Trevor Rogers, are you serious? So, but it is what it is. I was a big proponent on Elias not trading guys just to trade them. It has to make sense. But I'm also now getting into the boat and shifting more towards that realm. Like, our time is now. I hope that we are able to sign Adley and Gunnar and Jackson to long-term deals, but we need to strike now, especially if we're on the cusp of making the playoffs every year and getting over the hump. We got to start out and go get a frontline ace.
For sure. I've said it a couple times, and there's, I've never heard this from anybody inside of the Orioles system or anything. It's just my personal belief. The O's really liked Ryan Weathers, and I'm pretty sure that trade was supposed to be for Ryan Weathers right before he broke his finger. And it was like a last minute pivot. Okay, this is a pretty good lefty. He also throws kind of hard when he's healthy. Okay, that'll work too, kind of thing. Because they were pressured to acquire somebody, and I think it happened to work out that Rogers was there, same team. They wanted the same guys. Yeah, I think if Weathers didn't break that finger, we have Ryan Weathers right now.
And I would have loved that because Ryan Weathers had a phenomenal spring. A lot of people were high on him in the fantasy industry, but if you watch him pitch, he's got real good K potential. I don't know if he's a frontline starter, but definitely
he's
a guy who's
2-3.
Like 2-3 for sure. I was just going to say that, and I would have loved that. Rogers for me is going to be off our team in the next year or two, if that. So, which again, we basically just gave Norby and Stowers away for free. So,
I still think you could probably swap Rogers to somebody like St. Louis. If you went and acquired like Sonny Gray or Helsley or Fetty, no one's going to turn down a controllable left-handed pitcher. So he still has value. He still can help the organization in some way. So I'm okay on that. They're just we touched on the position player logjam. We're going to find out this year quickly the logjam that we have in pitching too. Uh-oh. Okay, sorry. My monitor was about to start a refresh thing for 15 minutes. That would have been terrible.
Would have been flying solo.
Yeah, but Bowie this year is going to have an astronomical amount of arm talent. I wish they would push him a little bit faster. They don't. I guess that's fine. And then Aberdeen's going to have some pretty solid arms this year with Morphy and God, who's the closer from LSU a couple years ago? Riley Cooper. Yeah. So those guys are going to have pretty decent times. So Norfolk, I mean, you got Brandon Young, maybe Armbruster, maybe
Chase McDermott
when he's healthy, maybe you know, Rogers, maybe. They've got a lot of bullpen arms. I feel like right now, it still is a little concerning that we haven't had a drafted pitcher make their major league debut yet. With Povich not being a drafted player here. So I would like to see them go pretty heavy this year on that and maybe change that with either like Zach Fruit or Pham or somebody like that. But I mean, that remains to be seen itself. What do you think about Tampa? I mean, I heard you talk about Junior Caminero. I mean, is he the only offense that they have?
No, Brandon Lau, especially this year for fantasy, you got a lot of guys because they're playing in basically the replica of Yankee Stadium down in Florida, and with it being outside and when it's hot out, the ball's going to be flying out of the ballpark. So any lefty
think about that.
Yeah, any lefty bat in Tampa is going to be a stud, and we're just getting into the warmer months. Brandon Lau actually to hit his second home run of the year so far tonight. So, but Junior Caminero it was my favorite prospect coming up last year. I know a lot of people were oohing on over Paul Skeens, and rightfully so. He's one of my favorites as well. But Junior Caminero's a guy, like, he does have some swing and miss in his game, but I think that the Rays will do a good job of putting him in a good position. They're going to be patient with him. He's the new face of the franchise. But before he got hurt, Josh Lowe, not brothers or any relation to Brandon Lau, was another guy I was very high on. He was hurt last year for majority of the year and still stole 30 bases, can hit 20 home runs. So he was super cheap in drafts. Obviously, the oblique injury he's now dealt with for 2 years in a row. It's going to be something that's gonna bite him in the butt. But they got a lot of young guys on that team as well. I think every year we sleep on Tampa. They're just a rock solid team every year, but they just can't seem to stay healthy. Shane McClanahan's already hurt. Josh Lowe's hurt. And they'll have a couple other guys. Brandon Lowe is always hurt. Yandy Diaz got hurt last year. So baseball's a tough sport to stay healthy for 162 games. But I like Tampa. Like I said, I don't think they're the bottom feeders. I actually think they'll surprise some folks and be right in the thick of things after the majority of the year.
I got a pretty hot take on it, but I personally don't think the Yankees lineup's very good. I know they're performing well right now. But that's March baseball and weird things happen, like the White Sox having a 0 ERA from their starters. Weird things happen in the beginning of the season. But my hot take is I honestly think that Tampa actually bumps the Yankees out of the playoffs this year.
I don't hate that.
I mean, with their offense and how streaky they get, if Aaron Judge misses 10 plus games, like I don't know if they can recover from that. Bellinger's not going to carry the offense like Judge could. He's going to hit his wall and he's going to just trickle down the rest of the year. Same with Goldschmidt. These guys have proven they do that all the time. I just don't know if they have enough depth in the pitching. Like we complain about ours, but theirs is being really tested right now.
Yeah, we talked about it at work today, and because I work with a couple of Yankee fans, and they said the same thing. Starting pitching is going to be something that's going to be really hard to come by. They look great against Milwaukee, but Milwaukee couldn't hit their way out of a wet paper bag in that series. But Carlos
Milwaukee
Rodon
looks like they're ready to just quit and go play next year and trade everybody.
Dude, it's been crazy because they were one of the best hitting teams in baseball last year. They're off to a really bad start, especially Jackson Churio. But I agree with you. Because look at it this way, like if we actually went down their lineup, Paul Goldschmidt, don't get me wrong, great player, past his prime though. And again, did not look good last year. Could he produce in the short field in New York? Sure.
Sure.
But past his prime, Jazz Chisholm has not proven to stay healthy his entire career. He hasn't had one healthy season. So you got to bank on him missing at least 20 games. I would take that to the bank. Judge has said that his toe is always going to be an issue. Stanton's already hurt. And Garrett Cole's out for the season. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong here with New York. That's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen.
Isn't like I said, Devin Williams hurt again already?
He's on the paternity list. He had a
okay.
Yeah. So he missed at least the next 3-4 games. But he was hurt last year too. So, we were talking about this. It was just funny. Marcus Stroman was a guy that they were bumping out of the rotation. And if you remember, I don't know if you caught that interview, he's like, I'm not a bullpen guy. I'm a starter. He's their SP3 now with all the injuries. So that
imagine if Max Fried goes down for them this year.
Yeah. They're screwed.
You don't know what you're getting out of Heel. I mean, he's going to come back, sure. But like, what are you getting out of him the first month or so when he comes back?
Yep. And he's going to be out. He's on the 60-day IL. He's going to be out until at least the All-Star break.
Right.
And I would not be surprised if they shut him down and not risk it because they did the exact same thing with Garrett Cole last year. I don't care what anybody says. He should have gotten Tommy John last year. Didn't need it this year because he should have had it this year or last year. I mean, so
100%.
I'm not sure why they waited on that, but not my team. And again, most people would watch this and think we're being biased because we're O's fans. It has nothing to do with that. It's just the facts, right? I know Stanton's getting better, but he's got both elbows that are bothering him. I know the Yankees are the talk of the town with the torpedo bat that they got going on. But at the same time, too, like realistically, they're a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. It's the best way I can relate it to. I actually like Boston a lot in that division with all of the additions that they got. They have one of the best 1 through 5s in baseball. So
yeah. I mean, and that also comes back to can Crochet stay healthy because he's only played one. I would say one healthy season. It wasn't even a full season. It was just one healthy season in his career. I mean, at this point, they've put all their eggs in that basket. So if that goes down, that spells a lot of trouble because their bullpen's already fairly shaky. I mean, they're okay right now, but I mean, long term, they're going to be a pretty shaky bullpen And same with Baltimore's. I think Baltimore's still going to have a pretty shaky bullpen for right now, unless they sign somebody, David Robertson, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know why that guy's not signed, but
doesn't that seem like the perfect O's guy to sign? Like, let's just sign the veteran to our team, the guy who's almost 40.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, when you're still striking out 99 guys in 70 some innings last year, like
Mm-hmm.
that's one kind of the bad thing about the O's. I don't even know if it's bad, but it's like a drawback. They don't strike a lot of guys out.
No.
Bullpen or starting rotation. I think when I
Nope.
looked at it since 2023, I think they were like 15th or 16th in strikeouts.
Yeah.
And we would obviously like to see that get a little bit better, but I don't. It's a catch-22 because sometimes high strikeouts mean you're coming out of the game sooner. Look at Blake Snell. Very rarely goes 5 innings. So maybe it's an organizational philosophy. I don't know. But
well, if you see some of these guys
strikes guys out.
Yeah. He's working his way back too. I know he had a bumpy outing yesterday, but guy hasn't pitched in a year, so give him a little bit of a slack. But the thing too, like especially if you look around baseball and go around to all the guys who have really high spin rates, who are trying to spin the ball as hard as they can, guys who have overpowering fastballs. The more and more as the seasons go on, we see these guys eventually end up having Tommy John, and I don't wish injury upon anybody, but God, like you got to think Tommy John's going to be in Paul Skeens' future any day now. We've seen it with all these frontline guys, Garrett Cole, Shane McClanahan, some of these other aces that go down quick because again, everybody's trying to spin the ball super fast. Everyone's trying to throw the ball as hard as they can. And John Smoltz said it best in the broadcast. He said, I could touch 100 whenever I wanted to, but I use that as kind of like a fifth pitch. To really run it up. I wasn't trying to go out there and throw as hard as I could every time. Jacob deGrom is a perfect example. He's taken that advice from John Smoltz and say, hey, I'm fine with throwing 96 to 98 and then running it up every now and then during a start. So I think you're going to start seeing some little bit more in terms of these starting pitchers trying to scale back and saying, hey, how can I be more effective with getting guys out or putting the ball in play and pitch to contact as opposed to trying to go out and strike out 15 guys every game.
Yeah, it's always so funny because I mean, growing up playing ball, you always heard, bat speed. Let the pitcher, generate your power, and then like everybody wants to throw 100 miles an hour. If somebody gets a barrel on it, you just generated 120 miles an hour of power for somebody. You can locate 91 and get guys out, and I think so many people forgot about that. And there's still guys doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lefties that do it.
Look at Kyle Hendricks. He's still pitching.
Yeah.
Adam Wainwright was pitching into his 40s. Didn't have no powering fastball. Greg Maddux could knock an aspirin tablet off a Coke can. I mean, that's how good he was with control. He could put it wherever he wanted. He wasn't an overpowering guy. And again, I think that's the new shiny toy, the sexy thing here with pitchers is they want every statistical advantage or get over on hitters. And they think, hey, I gotta spin the ball quicker. I got to be able to develop new pitches. I got to be able to throw the ball 100 miles an hour consistently. That's fine. But just know that your body and your shoulder and your elbow are not meant to be able to do that repeatedly over and over and over again, unless you're somebody like Aroldis Chapman, who just never seems to get hurt. He's just a freak of nature. So, but yeah,
it's so funny to me. Cause like, is hitting 100 miles an hour hard? It is, but I mean, we all watched Felix Bautista throw 101 on the inside corner to Kyle Tucker, and he turned on it with ease for a grand slam. Like, these are professional hitters, and they can hit that. Now, if that was 96 to 97 with a two-seam run to it, that's probably a pop-up because it doesn't hit the dead smack of his barrel.
Right.
100%. It just – and I know these older pitching coaches know that, and I just feel like they're being trumped by analytics. Do you feel
100%.
the same way sometimes?
Yeah, I think I said this the other day too. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm a big analytics guy, being a fantasy analyst and things like that. But at the same time too, especially in real life, I think sometimes we get too bogged down in the numbers and too bogged down in the tablets and statistics and things like that. Because if you remember back in the 90s, they didn't have any of that stuff in the dugout. Right. And even before that, I mean, before my time, I'm 37. So, even dating back into, the 80s and the 70s, like they didn't have that stuff. You look at guys like Nolan Ryan, who went out and threw 250 innings plus every year. How did he do that and especially with today's day and age of the improved athlete with all of these the training modalities and the statistics and things like that. How did we get away from that? You know what I mean? Like what's happening now that wasn't being done then? So
Dude, they ate hot dogs and drank beer
right,
and stayed on the field. And I mean, yeah, did not everybody threw 100 miles an hour. I get it, but
yeah,
some guys
yeah,
did, and they
right,
didn't get hurt. You know,
right.
they would be sitting there smoking a pack of cigarettes in the bullpen before they came out in the field, and they were fine to pitch, 200 pitches.
Yep.
Now if you smoke a cig before you even come in to throw your 20 pitches, you're probably huffing and puffing for air.
That's right. And you see a lot now too, especially with guys, and I get it because a lot of these guys don't want their studs to go down. I said this 2 years ago. I think the Dodgers will end up doing it this year more importantly. I think you're going to start implementing 6-man rotations.
Yeah.
Seriously. The days of starting pitchers getting big money, like Clayton Kershaw or Felix Hernandez, like those amount of contracts are not happening anymore, just simply because of the statistics and the analytics with guys who throw hard and spin hard and all the rest of that stuff. You're going to start seeing more six-man rotations and letting guys get an extra day of rest. So that way they can recover. The Dodgers will do that to keep Glasnow healthy. They'll do that to keep Yamamoto. They'll do that to keep Clayton Kershaw when he's back. Dustin May, who's another guy who's coming back from Tommy John surgery.
Yep.
So, they'll start implementing more 6-man rotations. Snell, yep. And everybody's going to start doing that in baseball. I'm telling you, in the next couple of years from now, we're not going to see any more 5-mans. We're going to start seeing 6-man rotations.
Do you think it would benefit baseball to go to like a 27-man roster right now? Go to 29, maybe 30, get a couple extra bullpen arms in there?
It's so funny you talk about that because we literally were just having this conversation today at work. Because, as you know, in September, they obviously expand the rosters. There's so much talent in the minors between AAA, AA, and single A, but I would never recommend bringing up anybody in that low of the minors. But there's so much talent that everyone's talking about bringing up, like making another 1 or 2 expansion teams, or even expanding the rosters to do what you just said in terms of keeping starting pitching or bullpen arms healthy, whatever it may be. And I think that adds another layer to baseball. Like I'm a very big purist of the game in terms of rules and all that stuff. Like I hate changing the rules to baseball. Like let's just keep it the way it was. Every year we try to change something, but the one thing that I would implement is bigger roster sizes, deeper benches, bigger bullpens, and I think that makes the game more fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see how that goes in the next couple of years. Maybe that's something they implement.
Yeah. All right, so let's get back to fantasy a little bit. Who are some of your favorite players in the NL?
Good question. Ellie De La Cruz was somebody that I was out on heading into the year when the draft season first started. But as I quickly started to do more homework on him, I'm still not in love with his K rate, but still a young guy. But this is one of the guys that can win you your league, and he was being drafted at number 4, number 5 overall. That doesn't seem like that big of a drop off from 1 because Ohtani and Bobby Witt were those guys.
Yeah.
But I like Ellie to finish because he offers everything. He's a 5-category stud, and if you don't believe me, look at last night's game. He had 4 hits, 4 runs, 2 home runs, and a stolen base, and 7 RBIs. That's Ellie De La Cruz in a nutshell. So. He plays in one of the best hitter ballparks in all of baseball, in Great American Ballpark. So I love him this year. That's an easy answer to your question, but looks like somebody in the chat brought up Pete Crow Armstrong. I have a couple shares of him. I love the stolen base potential for Pete, but he's got to get on base to do that. And right now he's hitting under 100, and he's pressing too much. Jackson Chourio, while also struggling, was one of my guys being drafted in the 2nd round. Jackson Merrill, I like a lot of these younger guys that are coming up that we saw some flashes from last year. I think you're going to start seeing these guys as the new faces of the game, especially Merrill and Chourio.
Merrill hitting 4 and 5 right now in that lineup. Man, them RBIs are going to skyrocket this year.
Yeah, watch him hit. I mean, he even said it in an interview too. Like he's not trying to do too much. He's just literally just trying to keep it simple, not swing as hard, just put the ball in play, and it looks so effortless from him, which is so much fun to watch, in my opinion. But those are probably my top 3 guys between Merrill, Ellie, and Jackson Chourio.
Yeah, and it only helps, Manny and Tatis, given even more protection. Last year he was down hitting between 6 and 8. Now you're getting them up in the lineup. You're getting a little bit more protection. You can't really throw around those guys because you got another dangerous guy who Doesn't care if he hits it out, even though he can, but he'll still drive it in the gap and get a double or triple out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And San Diego's been slept on. This may seem like a hot take, or maybe it's not. I think Jackson Merrill's the best hitter on that team, over Machado and over Fernando Tatis. He's already there.
Mhm.
And it's funny too, because if you look at it, like all of these guys played shortstop when they came up. Manny,
Yep.
Fernando Tatis, Jackson
Well,
Merrill.
yeah, Profar left, but it was 6 or 7 last year,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
and they're all playing all over in the infield and the outfield, which was
Yep.
funny. But they have really two good young studs in Fernando Tatis and Jackson Merrill. Manny's starting to get a little older in two now, but still got some years left in the tank.
He's still
Yeah.
Manny. Could you imagine if they didn't trade for Soto and still had CJ Abrams and James Wood?
Yeah, I mean that
would have been a nasty
would've.
lineup.
It would have.
Just absolute nasty.
Yep.
Give me your take on James Wood now that we brought him up.
I like James Wood a lot. The best part of James Wood that I like, lefty hitter, can drive the ball the other way. Both of his home runs, I think he has 2 on the year. If not, maybe I'm thinking of one in spring training, but the one he recently hit drove the other way. He's got effortless powers to all field. And something that I like in a hitter. I was actually looking at Pete Alonso yesterday, hit a grand slam, went oppo as well. A lot of these guys who are power bats are very pull heavy. And back when the shift wasn't banned, they were playing that. And a lot of these guys, I think when you're able to drive the baseball the other way, that makes you so much more of a dynamic hitter, and impossible to pitch to. Look at guys like Miguel Cabrera, who could literally hit any pitch at any point in any time that he wanted. Now, obviously, being Miguel Cabrera is a lot harder, a lot easier said than done. But that's what makes Pete so great, Pete Alonso so great, especially in his early going, was because he was spraying the ball all over the ballpark. And I think James Wood can follow suit, being an outfielder and being how big he is. So definitely face of the franchise. I love him this year from a fantasy perspective. I think he can definitely take the next step. And this is a guy we could probably be drafting in the top 3 rounds next year.
Now, do you think? Actually, I'll get to Joe's comment. How about Jalen Beeks in Arizona?
I don't really have a much of an opinion there. The thing with Arizona is they were already the #1 scoring offense last year. They scored the most runs in baseball. I kid you not. They scored more runs than the Dodgers, the Braves, the Yankees, whoever else you want to consider. And they got a plethora of guys that I like that are in the minors, like Jordan Lawler, for instance. Like they don't have a spot for him. They signed, Geraldo Perdomo to play shortstop. I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? So I don't know where Lawler plays. Eugenio Suarez at third, Ketel Marte at second. They signed Josh Naylor, and then the outfield, a lot of young talent in there: Corbin Carroll, Alec Thomas, Jake McCarthy. There's a lot of guys that they like in Arizona. So. That's one thing. And Pavin Smith, that's another guy they love, that he's starting to play more of as well. So it's kind of like the O's. They have so much hitting. There's just not a place for all these guys to play. So
yeah. We'll go back to DC. Do you think Dylan Cruz figures it out? I think from what I heard, they changed some stuff on him, and it's not working right now. But is he a guy that brings any kind of fantasy value here in 25?
I think a lot of people are on him I think a lot of people are in on him simply because of where he was drafted at, right? Like a lot of people liked him simply because of the fact of where, again, fell right behind Paul Skeens. And I think he may be a year or 2 away. Just he has very limited major league experience. Also a very tough division, playing with the Mets, the Phillies, and even Florida for I think is sneaky good this year as well, just in terms of once all their guys are healthy from a rotation standpoint. But yeah, I like him. Same thing as Jackson Holiday. He may be a year or 2 away. Going back to the previous question there on Jalen Beeks, I know he's a pitcher, not a position player. But again, I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on him to begin with. Especially last year, 7-4 with the 4.50 ERA with 10 saves. Looks like a relief arm here. Not somebody I'm really high on in fantasy or in real life. So
yeah, that's fair. Did Christian Moore not make the Angels? Yep. Dang, I thought for sure he was making that team. Does he have any dynasty value 100%. To you?
The Angels were Angel, though. That's the only thing that sucks about him being with the Angels is You get guys like Nolan Shanwell who get drafted right away, and then he's playing in the majors. Then you get guys like Christian Moore that everyone's like, oh, he's a lock because the Angels suck. No. I think he'll be up at some point this year when they deal off maybe guys like Luis Rengifo and some of the other guys that they have there. Like I love Zach Neto. They'll try to get rid of some of these older vets like Jorge Soler. They'll flip for sure. Kyle Hendricks is pitching today. They'll flip him for sure. So there might be a better playing path for Christian Moore. But again, they want him to get some more seasoning down in the minors.
It's about time they took that route, huh?
Yeah. There's a lot of guys in that development system too that I wouldn't say I'm high on, but that are interesting. I would say so. Christian Moore being a second baseman, he's blocked by Rengifo, and he's always hurt as well. But last year for Christian Moore, just looking at him here too, he, between single A and double A, hit a combined 347, which is great for your first time coming up in a major league system there. Not to mention too, like 6 homers, 20 RBIs, 347. Like he's a guy that I think can be a fantasy asset for dynasty. You're definitely holding on to him. But again, I still think we're probably, if we don't see him during the late summer, we'll probably see him in September.
Yeah. I mean, 984 OPS. I mean, it's nothing to scoff at.
Exactly.
Especially when you're only 22.
Yeah. Yep.
So is there any other, God, who was the guy's name? Ethan Salas. What's your thoughts on that as a dynasty catcher? Because remember at one time he was ranked well above Basayo.
Yeah. I have both Ethan Salas and Samuel Basayo in a dynasty league, and we have this thing where they can sit in your NA spots because they're not obviously on the major league roster, so you can basically hold on to them while also picking up another player while you wait. Now, usually in Dynasty too, like, and it's funny because on the podcast that we always joke catchers are kind of a joke because most of the time a lot of them just don't pan out the way that you want them to.
Right.
Ethan Salas had a lot of buzz coming up and has kind of tapered off a little bit too. He's still super, super young.
He's 18?
Something like that. I think he's 19 or 20, but he's still super, super young. I love Basayo. I think he's clear cut above him right now. But you're right. There was a time where Ethan Salas was the guy. So he's gonna have a lot of time in the minors to kind of figure this out and right the ship before he gets called up. They're not going to rush him, but he is the future of the Padres. And here's the thing too. I would not be shocked or surprised, and we've already seen it. Like, would you be shocked if they dealt Ethan Salas at the deadline if they're in the thick of things, like for a pitcher or for another hitter? Yeah, nope. Exactly right.
Not at all.
So,
because a lot of teams need a catcher.
Yeah.
So here's my big question for you. What is your preferred format, rotisserie or head-to-head?
Oh man, I wish my my podcast co-host was here with me. So I've been playing fantasy baseball for decades. And I've always been a head-to-head categories guy. And I get the argument for why people don't like it because it's very luck-based. Like you could have the best team in your league, make the playoffs and get bounced the first round because your guys just had a bad week. That's the thing that sucks.
Yep.
Versus Roto, which is a little bit more skill-based, I think, because you're going to be going after guys that are going to help you out in a lot of different categories, but there's no luck involved because you're not playing anybody every week. You're basically just literally trying to accumulate the most points possible. So, I'm in TGFBI this year. For those of you guys who don't know, it's the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational. It's some of the best players in the world are playing in this. It's my first time dabbling in that last year. And I just didn't like the layout and nothing against anybody at NFBC, but the website is a little archaic, so it's very hard to navigate and use on the app and on the website. So, but that's a 15-team roto. And I played in another league on NFBC, which my first time playing on that format in another league. I ended up finishing in first, and got $450 out of it, which was cool. So,
nice.
Yeah. But I'm a head-to-head guy. I always will be. In my home league that I play with all my buddies, we always tinker with the fact of, man, maybe we should go roto, maybe we should go head-to-head points, maybe we should do a points league. We always stick with cats. So it makes it an interesting dynamic because too, like, here's the thing with head-to-head catch I think is fun. If you're not the 1 or 2 seed, if you sneak into the playoffs and you're the 6th seed and you make it in, you have an equal shot as anybody to win it. it's not like fantasy football where the
Mhm.
top guys usually end up winning it all. You have a chance, which is fun, in my opinion. So that's part of the reason why we stick to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it only takes one hot week, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely right. All you gotta do is make the dance. You can't win it if you don't make it. So yeah.
Exactly. All right, well, give everybody a plug on what they can find you with. You know, what do you do every day? You know, how can they find you and ask you for advice and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
so I am at _ Mike VA here. It is right there. You can find me on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it these days. I am a co-host of the Palazzo podcast, PALLAZZO podcast. That we do shows on Fridays and Sundays, talk about fantasy baseball. We answer your questions. Every day I do a Mike VA notes, which I recap the nights before, go over some top guys that are on my mind, waiver wire targets, answer questions, hold or fold, prospects, the whole nine yards. So if you are into fantasy baseball and you have questions, feel free to follow me, hit me up. I'm happy to help wherever I can.
Sounds good. I mean, like I said, we got the guru on here for a reason
No.
tonight. So you guys definitely go take advantage of that and give him a follow if you're on Twitter and whatnot. Are you anywhere else, Instagram or Facebook? Or
I'm on
anything?
Blue Sky right now, which is like,
Okay.
the new Twitter, I guess. I'm hardly ever
Mhm.
on there. I'll be honest with you. Twitter is my favorite platform. I love interacting with the folks on that. But yeah, that's probably where mainly you can find us. If you want to look for us on YouTube, again, search Palazzo Podcast. Again, that's PALLAZZO. On YouTube, we would love a subscribe. Again, we do shows on Mondays, Fridays, and Sundays.
And I'll drop that down in the description here at the end of the
Yeah.
show. So once people go back and watch it, they can just click right on the
Yeah,
link.
perfect.
But you got anything else for us? I know we're gonna wrap it up here tonight.
Well,
you know, you got
I
anything
want to
for
get
us?
your take here, since we're early
Okay.
on in the season. Who do you got winning the AL and the NL, and who do you got winning the World Series?
AL. Oh, I've been bullish on them all year, and I'm not going to back up on it now. I got the Rangers. I feel like if it's been an aggressive team over the years, and they're not afraid to send off whatever to get whatever. And they're at the advantage of having Evan Carter and not really needing him, even though he struggled a
Yeah.
little bit. But he can acquire a good arm for them if they need it. They're going to be aggressive at the deadline. I think their offense is one of the best in the AL. I personally think Jake Berger was a huge low key signing for them. He's probably going to hit 30 home runs
Easy.
for them. Smaller ballpark and whatnot. I just feel like they're probably if they stay healthy, the most complete offense. I have them playing Detroit in the ALCS.
Okay.
I think Detroit is getting it all together slowly. They still have a little bit of steps to make. I think if they go and acquire one more starter, that really puts them in a good spot. If you can move Flaherty down to that 3 hole, that puts them in a great
Totally
spot.
agree.
I don't want them to do that, but I just think that they have a well-rounded lineup. And look, they've been aggressive before, and I could see it happening again. I think we see a San Diego LA rematch again, this time in the NLCS if the matchups allow.
Right.
Hopefully they do. I think that would be a fire series. That would be awesome. It's really hard to bet against the Dodgers. So look, little backstory: Jackson Merrill is my cousin.
Oh, is that right?
So I'm always going to pull for
Okay.
them. Yeah, I'm always going to pull for them. I would take them over the Dodgers, and it would sound like a complete idiot to say that out loud. But I'm going to say it anyway. San Diego and Texas in the World Series.
There you go. I like it.
Winner. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know. I think it would really depend on. Man, I don't know. I think that would be a hell of a 7-game series right there.
It would. Yeah.
That'd be a lot of fireworks.
I'd go Texas there if I had to pick between those two teams.
I was thinking it, but it's like, I mean, yeah. I don't know.
Because here's the thing with San Diego.
How healthy is DeGrom
Right.
would be my question.
That was going to be my next thing too. Is like rotation wise,
Yeah.
if you're comparing them, like you got Michael King and Dylan Cease at the top of San Diego, and then on the Texas side of things, you got DeGrom, and then you got Nathan Eovaldi, who's decent. But they got a deep rotation as well if they can get Jack Leiter going as well. So I like that pick. I like Texas as well. I got Texas and Boston in the ALCS, and Boston taking it out of the AL. And then I'm sticking with them, even though they haven't looked good. They're 0-4, probably going to go 0-5 because they're playing the Dodgers tonight and tomorrow as the Atlanta Braves. The reason why I picked them coming out of the NL is, Acuna will be back in a month, literally a month, 1 month away. He'll be back. Spencer Strider should be back at the end of April as well. So those are their two top guys that they're getting back in the mix. And I know they just lost Yerkes and Profar to that PED suspension, but that's one thing Atlanta knows how to do. They know how to acquire guys at the deadline. Like, would it shock anybody if they got Jorge Soler back? I mean, I feel like every year they try to acquire him.
Right.
But you got young guys like Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, even Spencer Schwellenbach, who looks like a superstar in the making. They still have Raciel Iglesias as their closer. So I got Atlanta, Boston in the World Series, and I got Atlanta winning it all.
This year, the Dodgers are obviously the clear-cut number one team.
I'm not picking them. I can't pick them.
No, it would be really, really Dodger-like for them to lose in the first round.
Right.
So that's what I'm cheering for.
That's what I'm cheering for too. Yep.
But yeah, I'm with you. I just feel like there's a lot of teams this year compared to previous years that you could look at and say, I could see them getting hot at the right time in both the NL and AL. And in Boston, that falls right in there. Detroit, the Orioles could. Texas. I mean, there's so many teams across the board this year. Arizona could be downright sneaky and kick out LA or San Diego. I mean, it's just I think this year we're going to see a lot of really good baseball. I won't be shocked to not see another 100-win team again this year. There's a lot of good teams.
Because here's the thing that with baseball, especially, this is why I think baseball is the best sport in the world, is you could be somebody like the Dodgers. It doesn't matter how good you are in the regular season. It's kind of like what we talked about in head-to-head categories leagues, right? Nobody expected Arizona to make the World Series a couple of years ago, and they made it because they got hot at the right time. You remember the year the Rockies made it in the wild card when they had Matt Holliday?
Yep.
Yeah. Nobody expected that either. And that's what I think makes baseball so much fun to watch, is because it could literally be anybody's show. The Nats did it, when they got hot at the right time, and everything fell in place for him. And
Anthony Rendon got hot at the right time. Remember when he carried that?
Now you'll never.
Everybody was expecting Harper to be the guy, and it was Rendon of all people. And then he got that big payday, and he just packed it all in.
So, but yeah, we'll see, man. What can very well happen is the four teams that we just mentioned won't be in the dance, and it'll be somebody that we'll never think of. Maybe those. Who knows? So
could be the O's, could be the Royals.
Yep.
It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to come down to what team stays the healthiest. 100%
right. Who stays healthiest?
It could be the Yankees, and then the Yankees could miss the playoffs.
Yep.
Like that's how much health matters right now.
Oh yeah.
It's depth and health.
And that's
some teams are deep and some aren't.
And that's the thing. Like, hit your spot on. And that's what the Dodgers are going to try to do with limiting some of their guys in the rotation, and then keeping some of their studs healthy from a hitting side of things, like Freeman and Betts. And if you sneeze wrong, Dave Roberts is going to sit you out for a day or two. Just to keep you healthy. But it's going to come down to who's healthy and who's playing the best baseball at that time come October. So, and again, that could literally be any team in the playoffs. So,
just got to get there. Like you said, it's the best part about baseball.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it up here. Mike, I really appreciate you jumping on tonight. I think we had a great conversation.
Yeah,
here.
man. It was fun. And thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, we get about a month in or something like that, and we start getting some sleeper studs kind of picking off. We'll come back and pick your brain.
All right, sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Cool. All right, fellas.